Greetings and welcome to LA Quill. Today we're diving into Chapter 17 of Arianna's tale. "What do you mean, no?" Darian shouted. Cadfael regarded his son coldly. It was no secret that there was no love lost between father and son. "Just what I said. We cannot waste our time chasing after some captured peasants, not when we're facing the threat of battle." "She's my sister, and this country has faced the threat of battle for 100 years. Darian was almost snarling in anger. "Nothing ever happens." "Your half-sister. She's the daughter of that treacherous witch Edwina." He leaned back in his throne. He knew that he was denying his son's request because he actually wanted the girl to die, but soothed his conscience by telling himself that they'd never find her anyway. The Empire was just too large to find one slave among thousands. Besides, the Senate was in agreement with him. Going after 200 peasants just wasn't feasible, not when they were already slaves in the Empire. It's not as if any of the nobility had been captured, after all. Darian seethed at the insult to his mother. "I am her son." Cadfael smiled slightly, a rare occurrence. "Yes, but fortunately you have my blood running through your veins to ensure that her treachery is not yours." He knew that he was baiting his son, but there was no hope for it. He just couldn't seem to help himself when it came to interacting with his only child. Darian couldn't just let Arianna die, or worse. Not when he was partially responsible. "I will go after her. I'll raise an army if I have to." The king ran his hand through his hair, frustrated at his son's obvious concern for the girl. "You don't have military powers. In fact, you have no powers but those I give you." Darian left the throne room, furious with his father, angry with himself, and sick with worry over Arianna. Tarius watched his friend down another ale and call a servant girl over to bring him more. They were in Darian's chambers, even though Tarius thought they should be somewhere else entirely. Getting good and drunk was probably a bad idea, but it wouldn't solve their problem. Besides, the headache that came with getting that drunk just wasn't worth it. With that in mind, Tarius remained completely sober. He thought back to their mad dash for Sitha. Usually, Darian was incredibly slow, sometimes taking a month to travel the distance anyone else could cover in a week. He slept late, rode only a couple candle marks, and then camped for the night. He typically remained camped for a couple days, sometimes even a week, before moving on. It hadn't ever bothered Tarius, especially since they really hadn't had anywhere pressing to go in the past. On their trip here, however, Darian had ridden like a man possessed. Only the fact that his horse needed rest prompted him to stop, and then only until the beast had regained its strength. He'd done it in the hope of saving Arianna. Now it seemed like Darian had given up all hope of reaching his sister. In a way, Tarius didn't blame him. Surely there was no way they could rescue Ari without the help of the king. Surely. Watching his friend pass out from drink, Tarius suddenly had an idea. If it worked, they'd bring Arianna back and this whole mess would be behind them. It was a big if, but well worth the risk. Darian awoke with a horrible pain in his head. He tried to remember the night before, but simply couldn't. He didn't usually drink enough to get quite that drunk. When he did, he always paid for it the next day. Suddenly, Tarius tore into the room. "Wake up!" He shoved at his friend, then pulled the heavy blanket from the bed. Darian just turned his face into the pillow, at least until a pitcher of cold water was dumped on his head. He sat up sputtering, looking at his friend in disbelief. "Your own fault for getting that drunk," Tarius said, unsympathetic. "Now get up and listen to me." Darian did his best to concentrate on his friend, but it wasn't easy. He felt like he'd been kicked in the head. If someone had offered to run him through, he would have been glad of it. "Here, eat something while I talk." Tarius handed him a plate of food. "All right. Remember how we were going to try the gully again, once we had a mage to get past that barrier?" He waited until Darian nodded, which took a moment. "Well, the mage we spoke to before is still willing. He'll help us get through the gully and back again." Darian looked at his friend like he'd lost his mind, still trying to process anything at all through the fog that seemed to engulf him. "This is no time to be thinking about that. We have to find a way to get to Arianna. We need to get through the ice shelf. This mage can't. We already know that because I asked him." The last was shouted just a little too loudly, and Darian put his head into his hands with a groan. Tarius shook his head, exasperated. We don't need to get through the ice shelf. We just need to get into the Empire. We can do that through the gully. He saw a glimmer of understanding in the eyes of his friend as Darian raised his head once more. And if they're anything like us, there won't be many men guarding the gully because no one ever goes through there. Maybe a small outpost, but surely nothing we can't sneak past. Darian tried to get up, but almost passed out. Tarius laughed for the first time since before Akana Valley. As soon as you can move, we'll get supplies and get moving. No dawdling. This time, we'll ride straight on. Darian nodded. It had been over a week since his sister had been taken. He didn't want to even imagine what she was going through, and even if they made good time, it was still going to take them weeks, if not more, to find her. He could only hope she wasn't suffering. Senior Senator Quill was extremely nervous. King Cadfael had summoned him, and the king had been in a foul mood the past 2 days, ever since he had denied his son the troops he needed to bring back his little sister. By now, everyone had heard the tale, and the gossip had served only to enrage the king. The king, when angry, was not an easy man to deal with. He reached the throne room to find Commander Bolin standing outside. The other man nodded to him but said nothing. Quill was the first to speak. Were you also summoned by the king? Bolin nodded. Yes, sir. Along with Prince Darian, though the prince has yet to make an appearance. Find Tarius? Find Darian, Quill suggested. Bolin nodded, but did not get the chance to answer as the doors to the throne room were swung open. They were directed inside by a page together, which surprised them both. It was unusual for the king to see more than one at once. He didn't like to be outnumbered. They approached the throne and bowed low to their monarch. The king seemed calm and composed, Quill noticed. He hoped that meant he was in a better mood. Where is my son? The king asked quietly. Quill had no idea and so remained silent. Bolin didn't know either, but he had been asked a direct question by his monarch, and so he would give a direct answer. My lord, none has seen Prince Darian this morning. The king addressed Quill. Bring my son to me. He will want to hear what I have to say. He waited until Quill had left the room before addressing Bolin. Commander, you will take a small force and retrieve the prince's sister, the girl, Arianna. He ignored Bolin's look of surprise. A small force, mind you. You will enter the Empire by sea and you will find the girl, but you will not engage in unnecessary battle. We cannot win a direct confrontation with Imperial forces, not on their own soil. Several moments later, Quill re-entered the throne room hesitantly. He approached the throne itself with even greater reluctance. He bowed low, trying to delay the inevitable. Speak, Cadfael demanded. Where is my son? Quill swallowed. There was no hope for it. My lord king, forgive me. It appears your son is somewhat missing. What? The king shouted, rising from the throne. His rage was clear for all to see. The senior senator continued, feeling it was better to get it all out now before Cadfael was engulfed in his own fury. According to what I have been told, he has quit the city, yesterday evening, in fact. He wiped the sweat from his brow. Apparently, he decided to search for his sister himself, and he and his young friend Tarius left with a mage after dark. Cadfael's eyes smoldered with rage. Very slowly, he said, Commander, your orders have changed. You will find my son and bring him back here. You will do this immediately. He smiled coldly. He shouldn't be hard to catch. My son is a lazy fop and will take a month to reach any destination, even in the search for his oh-so-precious sister. But do not pursue them into the Empire, if they get that far. If they want to get themselves killed in that forsaken place, let them. Go. He had been willing to allow his son to search for the girl, but no longer. Not after this disobedience. And upon his return, Darian would pay dearly for this action. Effectively dismissed, Bolin bowed low once again. As he backed from the king's presence, he thought, he's anything but lazy when it comes to saving his sister. He wondered just how he was supposed to catch a man possessed, and how exactly he was to force him to return to Sitha. Surely clubbing the prince of the realm over the head and dragging him back was tantamount to treason. Short of that, he knew Darian would not return. And that's our tale from L.A. Quill today. If you enjoyed this chapter, let me know your favorite moment in the comments. Until next time, may your stories always be magical.